Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. It's a how-to session from the Travel Collective, and we're joined with special guest Sheila Stone. We
Yeah,
are
welcome,
all,
Sheila.
yeah, welcome Sheila.
Thank
So
you.
tonight we wanted to kind of talk about independent boutique travel, where to find these tours, where to find these amazing things, and dispel some of the myths that are out there that we bump into.
Yeah, because we hear this all the time, right, Sheila? We hear that a boutique
Always.
travel or independent tour providers, there's a lot of concern, like it's going to cost too much, or how do I know they're trustworthy? So let's just like walk through some of those things that we hear, right? So I'm going to start with the cost. That's the first thing that I heard just recently was like, oh yeah, you said boutique travel companies, they cost too much. Like I don't want to talk to them. That's pricey. That's a myth. That's not true, right?
Right. It's
No,
completely not true. No. And I think as we all provide tours and things here, we can all honestly say many times we are running these like barely. Sometimes we're just breaking even just because we have a passion and we want to go and we don't want to cancel the trip, or sadly we love it so much that we've all lost money. So there is a myth, and for the value you're getting for your dollar, and that's where I think people miss the boat. They don't look at the whole package. What am I getting for this versus signing up to be stuck on a bus that's just going to blow past the fall colors and you have to take the picture out of your window?
absolutely.
Big difference.
Absolutely.
And have you heard that question, Sheila? Do you get,
Oh,
the
goodness,
cost?
yes.
Yeah.
This is going to be really high end. This is going to be really expensive. And yeah, that's so much not the case.
Right. And I think they can run the gamut, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I think we can have, there's tour providers that do like specialty, like I do custom tours, and or that they do specialize in luxurious high-end stuff, and that's fantastic. But just because you're a local or boutique independent tour provider, that doesn't mean that's what you're doing. Many of them,
Right.
in fact, most of them we talk to are just what you said, April, passionate travelers.
Yes.
They genuinely just want to share these beautiful places with other people.
Right. So I really think that, don't shy away from like wording, because I think we struggle too as providers, as people that put these things together on what to call it. It's like just because it might say boutique or workshop or experience or whatever wording we might use, don't just run the other way. I mean, look at what you're getting, all of that, and do some comparisons, because I really think there's a myth regarding cost.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We
And you shouldn't use cost as your only criteria, because you've got to look at what you're getting for what you're paying. So, your return on investment, you know, what you're getting
Yeah, and sadly,
can,
we only get so many vacation days and
Yes.
moments a year, right? So you want to do best by them, right? And I think that's what people, travelers, are looking for. We had a few others, right, April? What are some of our
Yeah, the
other?
next one we talked about was single supplement. I know we get this question a lot. And again,
yeah,
it comes down to, are you reading? Many boutique, many of us independent tour providers, whatever bucket we want to call ourselves, oftentimes we give each person, there is no single supplement. We automatically set up the price. I price my trip. I believe Sheila and some of the others too as well. We price it per person right from the get-go.
Right.
right.
This works better. And if I'm traveling with one vehicle, that's part of it. I mean, whether you guys choose to share a room, I still have to make sure I have room in my vehicle for only 6 people, maybe 8. So, and at the end of the day, to me, the value you get from having your own room outweighs sharing a room sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes. Right. Well, and I think most of us, like, as the smaller tour providers, we build it in. So when you
Right.
see per person, it's usually not per person, and you have to have two to get this price. Otherwise,
Right.
you have to pay extra to have the room by yourself. most
Right.
independent tour providers, we already know that everybody wants their own room.
Yeah.
So we do it the other way around, which is like, if you happen to be someone who's going to share a room, reach out to the independent tour provider. They'll probably give you a little discount, not much, because the room is only a small fraction of the overall
Yes.
cost, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But so we price it, as you said, April, per person, because that's how we find travelers want to travel.
Right.
One person, one cost at a time. So
Absolutely.
you're gonna pay it either way. I think you and I, Sheila, talked about this too, right? You have to pay to have a room by yourself. It costs more to have a room than to have a room with somebody else. That's just the bottom line. So the cost on a boutique independent tour might be a little more. The sticker price might be, because you're not going to be charged a single supplement.
Right.
Right.
But you have to, it comes out in the wash, folks.
Yeah, it's one way or the other. And I
Yeah.
agree with Cindy that if you do decide to, like, maybe it's a mother-daughter, or sometimes I have couples taking a trip, if you want to share a room, by all means reach out. It's possible I can deduct some, but again, that lodging is such a small fraction of the overall experience that I'm providing, that, don't get in your head like, oh, we're going to save all the, it's sometimes very minimal. And then oftentimes the local places I'm choosing to stay, it's about the same, whether there's one
Yeah.
bed or two beds, or sometimes finding the room with the two beds or whatever.
That can
That's
be
even
difficult.
harder.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder and may cost me more in the long run.
I know on some of my tours, I book the whole lodging, and I know other folks, we talked to a few other folks who do that as well. So if I don't fill it up, we still have the whole building,
Yes.
right? So we have 8 rooms or 10 rooms. And so it doesn't cost me any less if
Right.
you guys share a room.
Right. Exactly.
Because I'm still paying the same amount. So yeah, single supplement is definitely, I do think most of our tour providers price it for singles. That's how we're
Right.
doing it, which I think it's kind of a bait and switch thing that the bigger companies are doing, right? They put that sticker price and it's a nice low price. And then they're like, oh, but if you want your own room, it's an extra
Right.
dollars.
I
Right?
agree.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Or-
misleading. Yeah.
Or extra excursions. A
Yes.
lot of times
Right.
it's like, you wanted to do
that
this?
really cool
Well,
thing. Yeah.
that's extra.
Gonna go to Paris and you want to go to the Eiffel Tower. Oh, that's extra. It's like sort of like
Yep.
that should have been built in. What else we got? We have another thing. We have a whole list here.
What's included?
Yeah.
Yes,
we're not
yeah.
talking-
What you need to be aware of what is included. That kind of the excursion thing comes under that. And how many people? If you're on a bus with 40 people, you're going to get a completely different experience than you're going to get if you're in April's car with 6 people.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, totally. And the kinds of things that can be included in a boutique travel or an independent tour provider. I mean, one of the things that I hear from our providers all the time is that local connection. Like,
Yeah.
somebody just told us a few weeks ago, in my tour, we go to my neighbor and he shows us, we do olive picking. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, your neighbor, these people, right? Or, they have a local connection. They actually know the people in the community. So, or you'll get to go in I think when we talked to the women about Morocco, they go and have a woman's tea in somebody's home. Like, what a beautiful
Right.
experience. You're never going to get these kinds of moments in those bigger tours. The what's
Right.
included is going to be so much more special.
Right. Well, just like Sheila on her Japan tour, it's like Sheila's going to take you to someone she's known for years that's going to invite you into her home and cook
Yes.
together or do flower arranging together. You're not going to get that with 20 or 40 people. You'll probably be at some factory or some big, it's not the same.
It's not the
Well,
same.
and you're not getting canned culture.
Right.
The culture you're getting are people living their lives, not it's up on the stage, they do their shtick.
Uh-huh.
You see the Tyrolean dancers or the flamenco dancers or whatever, but that's a business
Right.
as
Right.
opposed to this is what locals do for locals.
Right.
Right. And I think that when you start looking at the independent tour providers at what's included, and you start looking at the description of what they're doing, some of it might be like, what? They're going to do what? And they can do it. They have the benefit of doing it. And I know the next thing on our list is the size of group, which Sheila already brought up. And part of the reason you can do those things is because your group is smaller. You can't go into someone's home and have a lovely meal if there's 25 of you. I mean, who has that home?
No.
So,
And you can't even go into a local restaurant,
right.
like a family run restaurant. If you're on a bus with 40 people and they stop the bus and you're having lunch, that's pretty much,
they're taking you to some big cafeteria or
Right.
something.
that's all they can do.
And
You know,
yeah,
they
what else?
can't take you to a small place because there's just not room.
Right.
When we went out on my Japan tour, we went out one night on Amayoko Street, which is, you know, booths and stuff. There were only like 6 of us. And even then we had to go to 2 different booths because that's how much seating there was.
Right. Oh, exactly. Right.
So
Yeah, the size of the group is a big thing, and I think it really can impact your experience, as we've just said from the previous 2 things. So that's something you want to look at when, you know, even with groups like Gate One, Rick Steves, and some of these other ones that, you know, have all the big budget and advertising. Quote, a Rick Steves small group is still much, much larger than many of the people we talk to, like Sheila, or even those that we have in our collective that we're putting on our website and working with, much different.
Yeah, and they're, because it's a passion project, you know, it's something that they do and they love, they're, you know, bringing you a small group of, and they want to get to know their travelers. They want to have a familial experience, more like we're all a family, and you'll feel that when you're on those smaller tours much more than you will if you're on this, you know, as we said, a bus with 25 or 40 people. I mean, those are fun. I've done some of them too. They can be fun for, I think for me, it's for a little window. I can enjoy it for an afternoon. I'm not going to enjoy it for 6 days to be carted around on a bus, but you know, I really like the limited number of people on those tours. And, you know, I don't want to say the small independent ones can afford it, because it's literally just all they can really palatable do, as well as we know that if you do more than that, it gets unwieldy. Then you need to hire, you know, other people to help you. And now you've got people who don't know the area. And, you know, now you don't even know what kind of experience you're getting.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah.
So the next thing we kind of had on our little bucket list of items here was finding out who's leading the tour.
Yes.
Oftentimes, you know, when you're working with an independent, a boutique, you know, some of the things, most everything that we're putting out on our videos and on our channel, you are going with the person that you're speaking with, that you're talking to. You can get to know their personality. You can find out like what their interests are, and match that kind of, oh, I can see myself going on a tour with Sheila.
Yeah.
She enjoys these things that I enjoy, or Cindy has a passion for, you know, being outside and doing, you know, camping or whatever it might be. You know, finding out who is leading the tour is completely different than oftentimes these larger entities.
Yeah, and as you say that, I'm thinking a lot of these, this is one of the reasons I want to go on so many of the tours that we promote.
I know.
Because you feel like, I want to be with this person, right? We meet these amazing people, and they have such an interesting, you know, outlook on their life. I mean, Kat from Thailand, just listening to her and how much she loves where she lives and what she has to offer, it's like, I just want to go and share that energy with her. And I think I think that's one of the beautiful things about the smaller tour groups is you can match your personality to the personality of the tour provider. And there are everything from big, you know, luxury things to people who, you know, like David, who
I was just thinking about David, right? Actually, I'm like, I wish I could ride. I'm gonna have to work on my bike riding skills, because to go with him just seems like so much fun. And again, he stops at local places and he truly cares. You can feel that passion. I know Sheila, right before we got on the call, was talking about passion. You can feel that, and you want to be with them. You want to meet Sheila's friends in Japan, that she's taking you to their homes, and you know, they're readily opening and sharing. You feel, by the time you leave that home, you're going to feel like you made new friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think connecting is one of the most wonderful things. I mean, it absolutely makes me so happy when I'm looking on Facebook and my Japanese friend said something, and then the likes come from people that went on my tour,
right.
that met Yayoi or I or whatever through the tour. And I just love that.
Yeah,
It's so exciting.
cool
Yeah.
that you can share beautiful people with other beautiful people.
Absolutely.
And that's part of what it is, you know, the who's leading the tour. And because some of these big organizations are leading tours, as we've heard of people who, like, you know, they're handed a script and they stand in front of you and they read it. They don't actually know. And if you ask something that's not on the script, they're like, we don't have an
Yeah.
answer for
We'll
you.
have to look into that. We'll have to like check that out. We'll get back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, many of our tour providers on our collective are either live there, have been there many times, they have local connections, and if they haven't, if this is maybe a new place they're offering a tour, they've definitely dove in and done their research. They've gotten, you know, reached out and gotten contacts, and they're extremely passionate and connected. So you're going to have a better cultural experience. I'm trying to find the right word, but I think that's what it is, right?
Well, and I think some of the bigger companies, they may advertise that, you know, they've got some scholarly person, and that may be something that you're interested in, why you're going to join that. But that's only such a small fraction of the trip. You know, really find out, you know, how many times is that person going to show up and do any type of guiding. That might just be, you know, one day that person is going to walk you through somewhere in Egypt, or even, you know, you meet Rick Steves at the big, and I love Rick Steves. I've read his
Yes.
books. I know for Sheila and I both, they helped us plan and go solo. But, you know, and you get passionate about Rick Steves, and even he started to realize that they've started to put profiles of who's leading that tour because they know that people may want to go. Is John leading that trip to Portugal? Because I met John and he led the trip in England and I really liked him. I would go with him again. But if they just don't know the person leading the trip, they may be a little hesitant.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have a friend who does all UCLA professor-led tours. And that's great. And if you have a real thirst for knowledge, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. If you're not that keen on the minutia,
Right.
it might become a little much.
Right. Yes.
Well,
How much did you like sitting in class?
And I think that, you know, when you were saying that, you know, that special person that knows all this information might come on the tour and they're offered, that's what they're sharing. One of the things that the local or the small boutique independent tour providers, all the words we come up with to use for us, that they do is we also find local people. So that, I mean, that's something, the people that, I mean, I may not lead the tour through the chocolate factory. I'm going to find somebody who works there, who's known it, and they're going to lead the tour, but I'm going to stay along with the whole ride. You're
Right.
going to have somebody who knows the tour inside and out, who's, you know, helping in case that person doesn't show up or the entrance isn't where it was supposed to be, you know, where it's closed. All those
Right.
things
Oh,
are being
yeah.
handled. And I do think a lot of the local tour providers have these connections, like these special, unique connections with people. They may not have, you know, a PhD in history, but they may have lived there for 35 years, and that is a different experience as
yeah.
well. So, you know, and ask some of those questions. I think that's important to think about.
Yeah, I have local guides that I use in Tokyo, in York, England, in Liverpool. I have a taxi driver. I mean, it's a van, but you know, who is
Right.
hilarious.
Well, and then our money's going to the community. And I think we brought that up too. It's like, we're
Yes.
not going to take you to the Hilton. We're sorry. We're very likely not going to take you to a big name hotel. April goes to lovely bed and breakfasts in her New England tour. These places that some of them don't even operate as bed and breakfast anymore. They just open up for
Wow.
April.
Right. Yeah.
Forever. But you know, so you're going to these very unique spaces, and the money is going to the local economy. And in the United States, that's important, but it's also incredibly important as we go across the world to be able to fund these local communities. Yeah.
And
Right.
I'd like to make a point that people go, oh, well, you know, if you're in Africa or Thailand or, you know, someplace that may be economically depressed, well, it's important to support the local community. It's also important to support the local community in London.
Yes. Mhm.
Right.
Just because
Oh,
they live in
right.
London doesn't mean that they are rich
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
or
Well, and I think-
wherever.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that one of the things, and we actually had a video we did about this, April, now that it's all coming back to me, is we talked about the impact that travel has on places. And, if you're not pouring your money into the city, Vienna, Venice, Rome, all
Right.
these places. And I think it's Venice that just announced that they're going to be making people have reservations or something
Yeah,
like
or
that, right? Very
pay
much
to,
the same
yeah,
way that Machu Picchu is doing, right? Only so many people go, and it's true about the Pacific Coast Trail, or Pacific Crest Trail. You
right.
have to do that as well. And the reason that they do that is because they have to maintain it. But if our dollars are going to a company that's based in New York City or San Francisco, when we're traveling to Thailand, we're not helping them pick up the trash, repair the
No.
streets. I mean, all of that, when we say it goes to the local community, you're right, Sheila. I mean, London also has to pick up the trash and repair the streets and fix the bridges and, maintain the
And the hotel
museums.
owners,
Yep.
because we stay in small hotels,
Right.
they are still struggling.
Right. Well, it's even in the United States, and
Yes.
Cindy's right. We have had several
Absolutely.
chats about this to
Yes.
maintain diversity even here in the United States so that you don't just walk into each town and be like, oh, well, here's the same choice of places that I could go to there. That doesn't make an interesting experience. The things we value are the uniqueness,
Yeah.
the little corner shop in New England or the little, diner in the South that makes, fried chicken or whatever they specialize in just that way there.
Right.
If we don't support those places, they literally, and that's what's
They'll die.
happened, unfortunately, just over the course of the last couple of years, they just close up and it's a ghost town. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Globalization can happen here as well.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
that's an important aspect, right? The locality of the money that we
Right.
spend, and that's something to think about when you're going to those bigger organizations. Where are they getting, and where's their money being poured? It's one of
right.
the reasons we
Exactly.
all have had this cruise conversation.
Yeah. And
Another
then,
thing, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say another thing is if you're on a small tour and you get taken to a place like for shopping and stuff, chances are really good the tour operator is not going to get a kickback.
Probably not.
You're
Probably
not being taken somewhere, okay, we're going there because I get some money.
Yeah. No,
No.
very probably not.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have one couple more in there.
We talked about the smaller tours can be a little bit more flexible and accommodating, which it depends,
Absolutely.
again, it depends on the type of trip you're going on, and these experiences can vary. I talk about on my trips because they're so nature dependent. We're going to see the fall leaves. I can't always, tell you like tomorrow we're doing X, Y, and Z. You wouldn't want that either. You'd rather know that, tomorrow we're going to see amazing fall colors. Well, that may mean the night before in my hotel room, I'm busy like which route is going to give us the best colors. So I may alter it. So those are questions to ask if you're going on a such trip in a shoulder season, or if you're going to see gardens in bloom or flowers, and also weather can
Yeah.
affect any tour anytime. And we're being small, we're able to pivot and shift gears and maybe like, oh, you're right, you know what, it's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow in Japan, let's go visit the park with the deer and see the gardens and save the flower arranging, which happens inside or can happen inside. We can sometimes make adjustments on the fly.
Absolutely. Another thing, as far as accommodation goes, is first off, if you have mobility issues, please be honest and tell the person who's leading the tour. Don't wait for them to assume everything is okay and then find out afterward.
And watch you 3 blocks behind us and go, are you having trouble? Yeah, don't do that.
Or I've had times where I've asked and they, oh, no, there's no problem. And then we get on the tour and it's like, yes, there is. But if we know ahead of time,
Right.
and it's a small group, things can be arranged differently. I had one woman that she had fibromyalgia and she'd get tired in the afternoon. So she would join us. We would do our morning thing. We'd have breakfast. We would sightsee. We'd have lunch. She would go back to the hotel and sleep and then join us for dinner.
Yeah.
And that worked out perfectly.
And not that, again, we're small tour providers, so you can't always change it because some things are it's not possible. Like you can't make it wheelchair accessible to the museum if it's not wheelchair accessible. And you can't make the hike to see the waterfall shorter. It is just 2 miles. And if you can't do it, you don't get to see the waterfall. And some of it's logistically difficult. What are you going to do with that person for a couple of hours while you do there? Like, anyway, all those things. But I mean, we have more flexibility, I think, because we're smaller.
Right.
And we definitely know that. I mean, because when I had a hotel the day before we were leaving, message me and say, all of your hotel reservations are canceled because we have flooding and the entire hotel's closed down. And we were like going to be getting on a plane the next day. Fortunately, that was a hotel we were staying at the end of the tour, but I had a small panic attack.
Yeah.
Because you have it all planned and I'm all ready to get ready. And now this, but because we were a small group, it was much easier for me to find a place where we could all stay. I wasn't displacing people across the city. We were able to all go into another hotel. I was able to find another location, fortunately, for the entire party. And that's something that we have. We have that ability. We're a small group. You know them personally, right, Sheila? The people that you're having these flower arrangements or meal experiences with. So you can call them and say, we want to pivot because of the rain. Do you mind if we do this today or tomorrow, or come a little later because we want to accommodate that. We can do those things. We're not so rigid, which larger organizations are. And something that came to mind when you were talking, April, is like, and we don't usually have a boss that we have to call to get approval to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not usually.
Right.
Yeah, not usually. So most of us can just go, this is what we're doing, and make that executive decision on the fly. And I think that's one of the things that makes our tour providers amazing people, because I've seen and watched and heard that just happens, right? You just have to,
Stuff happens.
You just do it. That's why not everybody's cut out to do that kind of work. Those people that do it, it's pretty amazing. But the flexibility of being able to accommodate you, which, like we were talking about, mobility issues or eating issues. So if you have an allergy or something like that, again, if you communicate early so that the tour provider has plenty of time, they're not just going to say, sorry, then you can't go to that meal with us. We will figure out something to work for you. Call the restaurant ahead of time, whatever we have to do to help you, because we only have probably 12 people we have to do that with, not 200.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing on our list was, a lot of people don't think because you're small and you only operate maybe 4 or 5 tours a year, are you really a legitimate tour company, or can I trust you? What am I going to do? And I know when we brought this up earlier, my number one thing that I think of every time I hear that is, we have to do right by you. We only have 4 tours a year. So if you think we have 4 tours a year and we got 10 people, that's 40 customers. Every customer matters. One customer is unhappy, we're not going to get 40 customers next year.
Right.
That word spreads
very
fast.
Not only is it important just from a business standpoint, but we really want you to be happy.
Yeah.
We want you to have a life-changing experience.
Yes. But a big company could make you unhappy, and you can say, I'm never going on another tour with Gate One or whoever it is ever again. That doesn't hurt them at all.
No.
But if you said that to us, it would be crushing. First of all, it'd be soul crushing, because we would feel terrible. But we don't have that big bucket of customers, and we can't afford to lose even one. And we want to be able to have, honestly, we have personal relationships with these people that go on our tours. Oftentimes we stay friends, and they matter to us.
Yeah, it's almost like we try extra hard, because we're so passionate, but and with that passion means we do have feelings. And if you don't enjoy the trip, we take it very personally, to be honest. And we really, as Cindy mentioned and Sheila said too, we can't afford one bad, it was horrible, and they go we wouldn't have any people to go on the tour the next year. So
yeah. That would spread really quickly. And I mean, and in 2022, the way social media, and I mean, it would kill you in a minute. You'd be canceled, if they will, right? Like that would just happen really fast if you did somebody wrong and, either didn't give them what you said you were going to give them, like that kind of thing. You can't scam them out of it and then still be in business. That's just not
No.
Right.
possible. And I know that's what a lot of people are afraid of. It's like, oh, I'm going to pay all this money and then I'm going to show up and there isn't going to be a tour. It's like, well, then we're not going to have a business either. So
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
if we're in it for the long haul.
I think we wanted to share with some people just in thinking about this, or if you see a tour or you go to our webpage or any Facebook groups, questions. I think it's important to ask questions. And I think we've
Yes.
brought that up time and time again to ask, just ask. So the first thing I know we mentioned was know what kind of tour you want. I think that is,
Yeah.
super important. If someone is looking for, you got to know in your own heart, like, do I want to go photographing? Do I want to go hiking? Am I
Yes.
okay? I mean, we've run into so many amazing experiences, but you really have to do some soul searching. And, if you prefer shopping and wine, there's somebody
There's
that
somebody for you.
there's somebody for you, and there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with wanting to do that and be honest with yourself, like what you're looking for.
Right, because the thing is, it's not like there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. It's what is your flavor?
Right.
Well, and I think that's the thing that April and I've learned in the 2 years we've been doing the YouTube channel, because when we started doing it, we just thought, oh, we'll interview some people and ask them about their travel experiences. And over the 2 years, the things and the way that people travel, I mean, I'm a travel addict as far as
Yeah.
reading and researching and looking at what people do. I consume constant, information about it. And I have been surprised. I mean, I didn't know there was a Star Trek cruise, and I had no idea people went Bigfoot hunting either, but apparently these are things that we do. And good for them. Like, that's amazing if you're interested in that. And that's something there are so many cool ways to travel.
Yeah.
Whether you want to go out and look
Absolutely.
for Bigfoot, or you want to have wine and, sit in a vineyard somewhere, or sit by the beach, or you want to listen to music. I mean, there is a tour for everyone.
Yeah, and that's the biggest takeaway I've learned too. Just like Cindy said, I mean, we've run into tours where, you're go foraging for your food, or you'll,
Yes.
if you love shopping, connect with a local in New York City. She'll take you to the most amazing boutique places, or,
Right.
little hidden gems that you may not find even in a deep Google search, because they've only been open for maybe 6 months or less, and this person will find those for you. So
Yeah.
know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that you said that really clicked was hidden gems.
Yeah.
If we've said a lot about the big tours, but let's be honest, if there's a hidden gem and it's small, you're not going to be able to do it. And that may be okay with you, and that's fine. But if you'd like to do something other than, the high
Hit the high
main
one notes, right?
attractions,
Yep.
check that out. Check out, if that's important to you, check out the tour. Are they going to go to places that, you might not have known about?
Well, then I think that what we're offering with the Travel Collective and allowing folks to both interact with travel providers on the Facebook group, see their faces in the YouTube channel, meet them in our Let's Talk events. We're allowing you to connect, and I think we mentioned it earlier, and to find that personality connect, right? Because there's a
Yes.
person who wants to share with you what you want to experience. I mean, we have cooking tours in in France. We have, maybe that's your thing, or walking tours, or, we have all kinds of amazing things. And if those are, what you're looking for, it's out there. And the bigger
Yes.
tours, they typically, like you said, Sheila, hit the high notes. And I think we were
Yeah.
asking, like, what kind of questions. We want to just go down to, like, look at the details. If you looked at a small tour provider, read everything they publish about that tour. Read all the paragraphs, read all the details, because hidden in there, they've written something really cool. You're going to stay at Jane Austen's.
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
It's way down in the bottom,
I
and you're like, that's
know.
the coolest piece of information to
Right.
me, right?
Yeah, I know.
So that's the kind of stuff you need to read it all. And then if you have questions, the small tour providers, just raise your hand, email them, send it. I have a question. How long are we going to be here? Will I have a chance to talk to somebody? Like, that's the beauty of working with a small tour provider.
But please read read the description first. I've had people go, so tell me about your tour. It's all on the website. I put a day-by-day itinerary.
Yeah.
Read through it. I'm happy to answer any questions, but what do you want to know?
Yeah, it's a big question. Yeah. So do read and then take your questions from there. I mean, I'm a notorious list maker. So I would read and I'll just write, make a little list, get my little clipboard out and write a whole bunch of questions like, oh, you said this, what does that mean? Or, we're going to take this tour. Is that all day? Is there a long walk? We're going to go see a cave. Like I have questions. And again, the beauty of being with a small tour provider is you can reach out to them as a human being and talk to them, not some answering service or, you're going to,
or someone in the office.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
We have a couple other things that we said we could ask, questions to ask about.
Yeah, make sure to ask about the sleep. If it's not clear about the single supplement, ask, or the sleeping arrangements. I mean, it's perfectly fine that you prefer to sleep in something that you expect, like a Hilton or something, but you need to ask because that may most likely with some of us more boutique thing and independent tour providers, we're not going to sleep that way. So if that's important to you, it's important to find that out. Or again, if you're uncomfortable doing stairs or you want to make sure you have a shower versus a tub, these are really detailed, but if you don't ask, you are going to show up where I said we're going to stay and then you're going to be like, well, wait, there's stairs. And
they're not all going to be Western rooms and Western restrooms. I mean, you were bringing that up, Sheila, like sometimes it's shared because that's all that's offered in this area. You have a shared bathroom.
That's becoming less and less common.
Right.
I mean, pretty much every room has its own private bath now. But like if you're going to Japan, now all of my tours, I made sure we have Western style rooms. That means beds as opposed to futons on the floor. Right. Because a lot of times the women on my tours are older.
Right.
So if that's something you want to know, whether it's that you really want to stay on futons or you really want to stay in beds, ask.
And you need to ask because especially, I'm doing research for a couple of trips right now and there's a couple of places where they don't. Like every lodging that I've looked at had shared bathrooms and I was like, oh, I guess this is still a thing in this location. And it's like, that's fine, but that's and the rooms are
but
different.
You want to know
the hotel rooms are not Western hotel rooms. They're a little smaller and like you said, sometimes they're tiny, but you have to ask the question, make sure you understand what your sleeping arrangements are, what the rooms are like, how far it's going to be. Do you have to hike in, walk through it? All those questions, because all of that's possible on a smaller tour. Most likely it's written well in the details somewhere on their description of their thing. But if it's not clear or you need something, like I need to have, my sleep machine plugged in, right? A lot of people are traveling with those, or I need to have access to something, then, make sure I need a bathroom access close to me, like whatever that is, then ask those questions and understand the sleeping arrangements, because especially with smaller tour providers, when we're trying to get you closer to culture, closer to the locals, those things may not be Western, right? They may not be the Hilton. You may be in a bed and breakfast and that may not all be,
right.
You may have shared spaces, right?
Right. And especially even in the United States, like if you're going to Alaska, you're going to somewhere that's more rugged. Oftentimes, there are things that you can't assume. And, for us to give you something that we think is amazing and more close to the locals and what happens there, it is good to ask, if you are a person that needs the bathroom like in suite in your room versus across the hall, or maybe a shared situation down the hall where women have one bathroom situation, and even in Alaska, I have some locals that say that, there's a difference between dry cabins and wet cabins, and that's just part of their lifestyle there. So,
Right, exactly. And what you're allowed to have in the room and how far is it, when we stay in Paris, is there an elevator or is it a walk up? Do I have to carry my suitcase up, 7 flights of stairs, or am I gonna, is there one tiny little elevator and we all stand and take turns?
Yeah.
I stayed at that hotel.
Yeah, I've stayed there too.
Or we all just shove our luggage in and then race up to get
Yeah,
it.
done that
You don't
too.
want to carry it. But all of those, but those are differences. I mean, for me, that's the beauty of travel, the differences, the uniqueness that we get to share. But if these things matter, or you have mobility issues, or you have things, you need to ask and look at the details, because very likely on a smaller tour, this could be all over the board. Whereas if you go with a
Right.
big company, they're going to stay in a big name hotel. It's probably based in, Houston somewhere. And, but you're going to get but you're not going to get the same kind of experience. So if
Right.
you need that, you need to ask and find out. And I think the last question is to ask about amenities, because there may be some really special, cool things you get to do, but there may also
Yeah.
be, there's no room service in a bed and breakfast. Like nobody's going to bring you, breakfast in the morning to your room. That's just not going to happen. And you can't
No.
call down to the front desk and have them bring
No.
you french fries at 11 p.m. either. That's not going to happen.
And you may have to schlep your own bags.
Right.
And you need to be aware. And for my tours, at least, if someone has like a physical limitation and can't,
Yeah.
that's one thing. If they don't wanna, that's something else.
Right. Right. And if you need that, if that's the kind of tour you want, because we have all of those as well.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know we have some tour providers in our community that do the luxury thing where you wouldn't have to do anything, and you can have
Right.
room service. And matter of fact, room service is probably built in because it's these specialty things. But just know that I guess it runs the gamut, right? Like I
Yes.
think that's the big thing. It's going to run from, sleeping in a tent in a forest, which would be fantastic for me, or you're going to stay in a lovely plush, maybe it's a small boutique hotel where everything is handed to you and you have to do nothing. I mean, it's both of those things can happen with a small independent tour provider.
Right. And there's not a right or a wrong
Right.
way. It's
Exactly.
just, what are your limitations? What are your expectations?
Yes.
Right.
Know what you want and know
Know
what
what
they're
you
offering.
want.
Yeah.
And
I
don't
think-
expect them all to be the same.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're trying to point out here. Don't keep dumping boutique tours and independent tour operators and, tours by April or tours by Cindy or Sheila into the same category and make assumptions. It's important to read, ask questions, dig in. You don't want to miss out on some of these amazing things. And the other thing I know we mentioned, if you have questions for an independent tour provider, is oftentimes you can ask to speak to one of their previous clients. We'll all be very willing to let you
Absolutely.
talk to a previous client. And that can give you a really good picture of what the tour was like, maybe what was involved, maybe even some things like, yeah, I really had a great time, but do be aware you do have to carry your bag, or,
or that you're going to be outside a lot, or whatever the situation is, or that April stops multiple times during the day to take photos, because that's what we do on this tour.
Right.
It's a photographic tour.
Right. But yeah, I think that's really important. I mentioned that you could talk to the tour provider, but you're right, April, you can also grab a client or two and get a real personal referral, which all of us would be happy to provide.
Yeah, and even if it's a tour that might be a new tour that we haven't done before, if you talk to a previous client, you're going to still get a pretty good idea of what that tour will be like, about what we're like.
What we're like. And I think that's important to the trust and factor of like, oh, she's going to accommodate me, and, it makes everybody feel comfortable and welcome and all of those things that happen. So, and that I got what I was told. I think that's the thing we're all worried about when we're booking travel, is like, it says all these great things, and then we get there and the room is this big and the sandwich is this big, and, like nothing, I don't actually get any of the things that were in that picture. Well, I mean, we pride ourselves on making sure whatever we tell you you're going to get, you're actually going to get, and you can reach out to somebody and they'll tell you, yes, all the things that April promised, I got and more. Right. So I think we've just got a few minutes left. I think that the last few things we want to talk about is like, where do you find them? And that's the hardest part, because they're small. They have no marketing dollars. There's no billboard, or they're not on Expedia.
No.
And I can say, just with doing the channel with Cindy and being passionate about finding those experiences myself, that it is very difficult. You can spend hours and putting together different keywords and still have a difficult time finding these places, and tours and experiences are not all in one place, which is
No.
a project, a passion project that Cindy and I are busy working on too, because I do think that travelers are missing out on some amazing things, things
Yes.
I wish I can do or have time to do in this lifetime. And so our passion is to hopefully continue to gather them. So that would be one place, but
Yeah, and most of the time it comes from word of mouth. I would say most of our business and everybody, somebody goes on a tour and they tell somebody else, but that's not an efficient means for you to find it. But I mean, just to come back to what we do, we have events where you can meet other travelers and just chat. We have a coffee chat that's super informal. That's a perfect place to find out what other people are doing. And they'll tell you, oh, I went there and this is the tour company. They're willing to give you all that information. They don't work for them. They went on the tour.
right.
So word of mouth, just networking with other travelers is a really good way to find these niche kind of things that are cool, right?
Yeah.
And then you do a ton of Facebook and so forth research, April, and that's another great place to find them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's so many groups out there. And if you post a question or an interest, like, I want to go cooking in Italy, somebody may have done that and they'll answer your question or do a search within that group, depending on the
Yeah.
group. And there's groups for different interests. So again, depending on your interests, don't just stick to the travel groups. But
Right.
if you're a bicyclist and you're like, hey, I'd love to bicycle in France, or I want to bicycle in Montana or wherever it might be, there's bicycling groups or there's foodie groups. I mean, there's groups for every interest.
And
So
people
Facebook is
travel
a
for
good
their,
place.
it is a really good place. And I mean, we were talking about like knowing what you want. And I think when you post that question, really understanding what you're looking for, be a little more specific. I see people
Yeah.
say, oh, I want to go to Italy. And then people start answering and they're like, no, not like that. No, not. I was like, okay, I want to go learn to cook pasta in Italy in October.
Right.
Give them a little bit more and you might be like, boom, now you're going to, so just hone in a little bit. If you may not know, maybe you are casting a wide net, but if you have a narrow niche of things that you're looking for, say it in Facebook, just say, this is what I want. It will crawl out of the woodwork and find you.
Yeah, exactly.
It will hunt you down.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and another thing, since I will say this because this is not my thing, which is the Travel Collective.
Yes.
It is, if you're looking for a boutique tour, you are looking for something unique, this is the place to go. Because if you have a question, put it there. Chances are you're going to find somebody who goes, oh, well, I do tours there. I do cooking tours in Tuscany
Right.
in October.
Right.
Exactly.
I have one.
Right.
I have one. And, it's a great resource. So by all means, use it.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, I've done it already. People are like, I want to go this place. And I'm like, give me a minute. I'll go find somebody. I can't, it's not off the top of my head. I don't know who does it, but I think someone does. And, we'll just reach out to our community and say, who's going to, Peru next year?
Right.
And then we get, a handful of folks. Okay, reach out to this person and this person. We're happy to, that's what we want to do, is help you. The Travel Collective is here to bring together small independent tour providers and travelers. Let's get them, get them doing what they want to do, both of them, the travelers to travel and the tour providers to offer those tours, and provide a forum for that communication and connection to happen. So, but there's a lot of other Facebook groups. I mean, we have a Facebook group, we have a travel YouTube channel, we have a website, but there's a lot of other forums like that too, but not that many where you can find the boutique ones. And I would definitely say word of mouth, networking with folks and getting out on social media and asking questions, aside from our group, is probably your number, the number two, the two top things to do.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
If you're looking for that.
Right. Because even Tripadvisor, you can still search, but you almost have to go into the forums again, where the social interaction is happening. They have a forum for each country in the United States, for each state. You need to go in there and post that question, like, I am looking to ride my bicycle across the USA. Does anyone know of someone leading this? Because I don't want to do it by myself, or resources to help me plan it, all of that. But that happens in the forum, in the discussion. It's going to be very hard to find because TripAdvisor, again, there's fees, or getting your small business even listed. You have to have so much, go over all these hoops to even get posted and listed there.
Yeah,
So,
to even be
Yeah.
listed, it's like Expedia. It's becoming more
right.
like that if you want to be. But you're right, from the forum. And I'm TripAdvisor, I think of it as talking traveler to traveler. If I can
Yes.
get on the forum and talk to another traveler and connect with somebody who else has been there, or read their review of their tour,
Yeah.
they posted a link to this, the small independent group that they use.
Right.
I'll go
Yeah.
find that. And it's like, oh, this, I heard on TripAdvisor that this was a great, tour operator in Chicago, and I'll go find that. So there are some of those, but it's back to social media. It's like Facebook, it's similar. You just have to interact a little bit and find it. But we hope that we've answered your questions about why boutique independent travel is the best place we think it is. And maybe giving you some questions to answer and armed you with some information to hunt them down. Right. Okay. Are we good? Anything
Yeah,
else?
I think we're good. Did anyone, unless there was a question dropped in the
There
chat?
was a couple people watching, but I don't see
Oh.
any questions. We got some hellos and how you doing and that kind of thing, but I don't have any questions for us. I think this is an interesting
Good.
topic. So I don't know that people have questions. Hopefully they've learned something. And
Yeah, hopefully
we've
they've
shared.
learned and they've been inspired to go in and really post if they're looking for
Right.
something. And as Sheila said, participate in the travel collective and keep watching. We have, an event on Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific where we're going to showcase a whole bunch of new amazing experiences.
Share
So,
more independent tour
right.
providers.
So even comment on this video if you found it on YouTube. Tell us what you're looking
Yeah.
for, what types of tours and experiences. That helps me go and maybe find them. It takes a
Yeah.
little time, but pull them out or go through my Rolodex of people and get these experiences, get you matched up. And we also know a lot of travelers that live in these places that know of locals that are literally on the ground just starting small experiences that are amazing. So,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of these day tour providers and stuff where they're trying. There's so many of those that have a passion for the place that they love and they want to share it. I love that. So, well, thank you all for watching, and thanks Sheila for joining
yeah,
us
thanks,
tonight.
Sheila.
We really enjoyed your input because
My
this is a
pleasure.
big topic. And we will put some notes in the description for the event on Friday and how to reach out to each one of us, Sheila and April. So talk